What up? Welcome back to the miniature mic monologue. Guys, I think I need to put my hair in a pony, not in this bun. So hold. Quiet on that, please. Quiet on that. We back. Hair is in the pony, and you are a little higher. I just love how my hair looks. Anyways, welcome back to the podcast, you guys. It's a gloomy day today. I'm drinking some tea. Ooh. And we are going to, I feel like it's appropriate that I'm drinking tea because we are talking about learning how to feel your feelings today. And I don't have I just have my experience to share. I realized I didn't finish what I was saying. I was like, I don't have answers. Like, I'm not trying to give advice or be super concrete. I'm just realizing that it is such a normal experience to have to learn to feel your feelings, and especially if you're someone who considers themselves sensitive, hyper self-aware. And I just think that I want to talk about it because I think that feelings in society have been placed at the very bottom for a long time before us. Now they're getting placed at the really top. I don't think that that's necessarily the answer. I don't ever think going from one extreme to the other is the answer. I always think there's like a middle ground. There's this one song by Andy Mineo that comes to mind. I can't remember the name of it, but he goes, they told me to choose a side, but I decided to pick the middle. I could handle that. And the kid could dribble and overthink. Okay, let me not. But that, when he said that resonated with me. I was like, I pick the middle on so many things because you can go up or down if you need be. Being at one extreme or the other doesn't allow you a good vantage point to see both. Like if you're all the way at the bottom for your view on feelings, like you don't think they're important, you push them to the bottom, you kind of quiet them out. Your view of what they look like to see them at the top is really skewed. You think, oh, those people are crazy. Oh, those people, you're just soft. They just blah, blah, blah. But if you're all the way at the top and you see those people at the bottom who do push their feelings down and they don't prioritize them. And, if you're sitting at the top and all you do is feel your feelings and it's all you prioritize, you're probably not even looking down at the bottom. And then when you do, you're kind of just looking down in a condescending manner, being like, oh, those people aren't real people. They can't understand my value because they don't look at me. I just think that it's better to situate yourself, for me, in the middle, because then you can hear from each side, make a decision, and move as you need to accordingly, which is kind of what we're going to get into as we break down this episode, because I used to think that it would come so easily to like feel your feelings and know what you're feeling and be able to say it, especially once I figured out how to put words to it. But that's not what we're taught. And I kind of want to break that down. So let's get into it. Okay, sorry, we had to have a quality change. But yes, okay, as I've stated, I am a sensitive girl. You know what I'm saying? I have always taken things to the heart, on my chest. And when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily okay or super good of a character trait. It was viewed as a negative thing to do. But as I've gotten older, I have reaped the benefits of keeping that part of me safe and sacred, and seeing how it's allowed me to have more of an intimate relationship early on with the Lord. And even early on in my relationship with my mom, I remember her, I guess it's not early on, it would be more now recently. She's always told me that my feelings matter and given me the understanding that I couldn't necessarily develop on my own, I guess. I don't know how to say that my feelings do have a place in my life, and they should have a big place because I'm the only one that feels them, and I should honor the fact that I get to feel them. But my upbringing and my faith have contextualized my brain enough to understand that they should have a big place, but it shouldn't be the biggest place. So trying to compare my situation, just naturally as we do as humans, to those that I see online, those around me, for any inkling to framework of what it should look like, or ways that I can start helping myself to feel my feelings in a good way, was really not an option for me, because people were either feeling them all the way and that was the only thing that was driving them to make decisions and do things in their lives, or they were feeling them none at all. And sometimes I feel like um, I can get to that place of apathy very easily, because I have the ability to over intellectualize my emotions. However, my life experiences have not permitted me to stay in that place for long, because I have experienced things throughout my collegiate career that made me feel things really deeply for extended periods of time. And they were very ugly feelings. Like, it was anger, it was hurt, it was disappointment, which I heard someone say, I think it was Khloe Kardashian. She was on Jay Shetty's podcast, and she said that someone had said to her that grief was an expression of love. And I was like, whoa. And that's kind of how I feel about emotions like disappointment and anger and hurt, because it's kind of like they're a reflection of the value and precedence that we place on the opposite of those things. I guess just being pain free, seeing hope fulfilled, and joy. Like, we are, in terms of emotions, we are like always on this sliding scale and spectrum. And for more reasons than I will ever understand, or at least let me say me, I always seem to have feelings about things that I would think I shouldn't have feelings about, which is another thing that I'm working through. But kind of back to the over intellectualizing emotions or my feelings. I think one of the reasons that I started doing that was because it gave me a way to understand them. And then when I didn't want to deal with them or understand them, it gave me a way to distance myself from them. Now, I think something to be noted is that I didn't have a lot of time to like feel my emotions or feelings while I was playing college volleyball, because I was being like three different people. I was trying to be someone for myself. I was trying to be someone in a relationship with God. And then I was trying to be a student athlete, which is two different people. So I was trying to be four different people, right? And, each of those people probably had very relevant feelings that can't all be processed at the same time. So the feeling I felt the most was definitely overwhelmed. But I've always been someone who, despite being very sensitive, it takes a lot for me to cry. And I think that has to do a lot with my context growing up and feeling like showing emotions was not a good thing. Like, everyone used to always bring up to me how sensitive I was, and it wasn't in a positive way. So I just assumed that I should kind of keep that to myself. But for some reason, it's so hard for me to cry. Like, it takes a lot for me to cry. And I don't know if this is a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. Definitely will be talking to my therapist about this. But I've been noticing myself a little bit more recently being more apt to cry, which makes me happy, because I feel like I should a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? But all of that is part of process of learning how to feel my feelings and not getting so caught up in what other people think is a good box to put your feelings in, because the church has a version of it that's absolutely garbage. The world has a version of it that I also think is really not sound. But if you look in there, there's probably some things that are good or better for it. But when you look to the Bible, first of all, sometimes I don't know why we glorify all of these people in the Bible for the things that they did well and forget that there were so many things that they didn't do well. Because I think by doing that, we take them and make them God-like, and therefore don't ever get from the scripture maybe what we might have gotten from it had we not seen that the saving grace in the situation was God's presence, not the fact that God used them in some way, shape, and form. Like, that's a sidebar, but when I look back on the Bible, the first book I think about is Psalms. And my mom and I were talking about this the other week, how David in the 139 Psalms, is it 143? I don't know. I think it's 140 something. How he literally in one psalm will be like, my life is meaningless. Why have you forsaken me? Why do you let these people treat me like this? You said you were God. You're not God. I can't believe you do this to me. End psalm. Next psalm. Father. End psalm. Next psalm. Oh, glory be to the highest of holy, purest, gracious, and beautiful Lamb. Thank you for bringing me here today to be able to have a glimpse of this day that is a reflection of your creation and your perfect presence. I think the first time I read Psalms and saw the juxtaposition of how he was feeling this day, how he's feeling the next day. And we don't know if it was day to day that he was writing these Psalms, but the ebb and flow of this man's process with the faith, with faith and the Lord, I was like, why aren't people preaching about this? And then it led me to a different conclusion that was like, that's probably because people aren't really doing the stuff to have the faith, but that's also another sidebar. But I was like, why aren't people preaching about this? Because this is exactly what it's like. You're like, hey, dude, hey, I'm feeling left and forsaken right now. And your word says you wouldn't do that. And then the next day you're like, oh, what a great day it is to be alive because I can walk. And then the next day you're like, I wish I couldn't walk because I walk into this job and all these people are walking all over me, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, why are we not talking about this? Like, the Bible provides examples of feelings and emotions, people who were dictated by their feelings and made bad decisions, people who felt their feelings and decided to pursue the thing that was righteous anyway. Like, it's full of those kinds of situations, and people who hang in the middle, like people who will be used by God and then turn around and go mess up and do something else and then come back to him. And it's like, if you are reading the Bible as if it's some big famous book with characters, you're not going to see that. But if you're reading the Bible like it actually happened and that these were actually people and God actually intended us to read it as if there were actually people in it, because there actually are, which is what you say you believe, you're like, what makes people do this? Or if you read it with that context, you're like, hey, I've felt like that before and made a decision like that, and it's in the Bible. That's interesting. Or, ooh, people act like they do in Sodom and Gomorrah or in Acts 20 like they do now. Like, it's just, I'm reading Acts right now. I actually read, I think, Acts 20 this morning. And it was about like kind of like the Pharisees and, anyways. But my point is, like, feelings are not left out of the Bible. So I don't know why we try to leave them out of the church. That's my biggest qualm with that. My biggest qualm with the world and the way that it does it is like, there's no rhyme or reason or rhythm to why we decided we were going to let feelings be important. And the issue with that is feelings have value at all times, but there is also no rhyme or reason or rhythm to them. Sometimes you feel something that has absolutely nothing to do with the situation that is going on around you, which is why you need knowledge of yourself, of your situation, to be able to be like, that's just a feeling, need to toss it to the side, or to be like, I think this has relevance because I felt this feeling before when I've had this conversation with this person, and maybe it means that I need to talk to them about it. You know what I'm saying? So I have a problem because I think whatever is trending is what we're going to do with things that are very innately human and have nothing to do with trends. So it's like, let's make feelings our top priority, our top guiding aspect. And it's like, do you even know what your feeling is telling you? No, but you're posting like, I quit my job because I felt like it. That's not what feelings are for. So why should we suddenly escalate them to the top? And then there's also people that still haven't done that. They're like at the bottom, like, we're not doing that. And then there's people who are in the middle desperately trying to figure out, like, why are there so many options? Why are there so many opinions? And why can't I just get some reasonable rationale and guidance on how to understand my feelings? And look, I'm with you there. I am with you. I want to come back to the feeling or the frequency of me being overwhelmed being my top feeling, because I think that that's something that is a product of our environment. Like, we grew up in the age of information and digital mass everything, just mass digital this, you can do this, and so many people are doing it, and millions of followers, this and that. Like, I think that's a product of that, but also just being, I think I'm a slow processor when it comes to processing things that are happening to me. And I kind of used to, and sometimes I feel myself still getting upset that I don't have this visceral reaction to big, good or bad things that happen to me, because I'm so used to seeing it on the TV, honestly. But also because I feel like people around me have that, but valuing my response as a measure of their response is really not good, because I haven't necessarily always been around people who I would take advice from, or that I would even consider being my friend. Like, so that's been difficult because I haven't really had someone to pair my same level of, oh, I'm feeling all these feelings all the time and I don't know what to do with them, with it, with. I haven't had someone to do that with. And then when I got someone, she moved to Texas. And then I was like, okay, there's another one. She moved to Michigan. So I'm like, okay, it's really just me out here. Like, it's just me. But it's okay, because I think that there is such value in understanding feelings by yourself. And I also think that there's value in not putting too much emphasis on it, because, like I said, you really can't control your feelings all the time. So if you spend too much time thinking about them, or you put them at the top of the spectrum, then we're overanalyzing, overthinking. We are inviting anxiety. We are inviting high stress. We are inviting doubt and self-insecurity, because there's this constant thinking. But if we're not valuing them at all, we are diminishing our human experience. We are kind of saying that our personhood is not as valuable as the one next to it, because we're not willing to deal with the things that make us human. Like, feelings make us human. Mistakes make us human. Relationship makes us human. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's just a big, big learning curve. And I usually have to take a couple of days, like when something big, traumatic or good happens to me, traumatic bad or traumatic good, because I feel like traumatic can be used in both ways. It takes me like days to process it, days. And I'm like, okay. The first thing I thought when I learned that about myself was, does that mean I don't know how to process my emotions properly? Like, I don't know how to filter them. And this is kind of that aspect of, we're not taught this in school. Like, kind of how we're not taught how to do taxes or how to clean the washing machine or the lint, like clean out the lint filter, or how to check for mold, like, things that we're not taught to do that we're going to need. We're taught like algebra, which, could be useful in certain basic situations, or geometry, useful if you want to be an architect. But another thing that our parents aren't being taught, that we're not being taught, is how to develop this whole idea of emotional intelligence, being able to understand your feelings. And I think part of that is being willing to not understand why you feel a certain way, and being okay with not putting a certain amount of emphasis on it, and or not making a decision regarding it until you do. And a lot of that I've developed is because of the Holy Spirit. Probably all of it. I'm like, a lot of it, all of it. What am I saying? But yeah, it's one of those things that I like to think about, but I also don't like to spend too much time thinking about, because like I said, we can overemphasize it and lead into the part of our human nature that is a little bit that is easily influenced and can easily get wrapped up in things that don't really exist and or matter. So I say all that to say it's a lot of trial and error, learning to feel your feelings. And I think that we would think it's innate in us. And I don't necessarily think that that's completely untrue, but it's not 100% true. There's like two sides to the coin, and the innate part of feeling your feelings is only one half of it. And the coin is not complete without the learning part, which I think is very, very interesting. So yeah, I'm curious about myself the same way that I have so innately been curious about others. And I am learning that that is almost just as important, if not more important, to allowing me to have that same curiosity with others in relationships that I have right now and that I will have in the future, that I really value. Because if I can't have a level of introspection to be able to learn my feelings to a certain extent and communicate what I need based off of those feelings with another person, then how much value am I really to that person, even if I love them, So yeah, this was just a little bit all over the place, but I just kind of wanted to give is this a food for thought? It might be a food for thought that you might have to learn to feel how you feel, or to understand how you feel. And I think that's life. And if you're scared to learn about yourself and learn how you feel, I would challenge you to think about yourself as if you were someone else, and ask yourself questions about yourself in that way to help you start to learn and kind of break down the wall. That's something I've always done. Like, I've literally always done that kind of naturally. I don't know why. Maybe it was a coping mechanism I developed early on because I have such a big heart for other people, but it took me a lot of life to learn to have the same kind of heart for myself, which the Bible instructs us to do, but we kind of glaze over because it says love your neighbor as you love yourself. But most people don't have a problem with the loving yourself part. They have a problem with the loving your neighbor. I was the opposite. That's not to say that I've experienced self-hatred, because I never have, but like, learning how to show love to yourself the same way you show love to other people was not as innate for me. I was willing to give myself up, and that's okay. sometimes to an extent, but we're not going to get into that because it's a lot of things. Like, I don't want you to think that I'm saying you should give yourself up for people, but once you get older, you learn that you can sacrifice and do certain things once you learn that you love yourself. And I'm getting into it, so I'm going to stop, okay? I'm going to go pour some more hot water over my fancy teacup and stop talking because I've been talking for far too long. Too long. I've recorded a couple episodes today, so my throat is tired. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye. No, that's the YouTube thing. I did this in my. Goodbye. Bye.